Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, welcome, friends of art prints, especially Japanese prints. My name is Dieter Ventura, and I'm the owner of a little family company located in southern Bavaria. Bavaria is a state in the south of Germany, and we've sold art prints, mainly Japanese prints, in weekly online auctions, exclusively online since 2001. And currently we run auction number 1713, and in this video I want to present a few selected prints from this auction. And these prints have all one thing in common: they are all from the so-called Meiji period. Well, for those who are not familiar with Japanese history, Japanese prints, what's the Meiji period? The Meiji period is a history period of Japan, also an art period. It lasted from 1868 until 1912, and it's named after the emperor who ruled during this period. And this is also called Japanese calendar, and by the way, it continues until our days, that the Japanese calendar is always named after the emperor who's just in power at that time. Okay, and this is the Meiji period, again 1868 until 1912, and it was characterized by a huge jump forward of Japan from a purely medieval country that it was in the middle of the 19th century to a modern industrialized nation after Western patterns. Well, this jump forward is comparable to what we've experienced over the last 20 years with China. And the first print that I want to show you characterizes the Meiji period very well. It shows a railway station. Railways, this was one of the proudest achievements of the Meiji period for the Japanese people. And so woodblock print artists like Hiroshige III in this case, they documented. Hiroshige III, he had even specialized on showing this process of modernization of Japan, and he was a pupil of Ando Hiroshige, but he's not called the second, but Hiroshige III. And why? After Ando Hiroshige, that is the great master with the Tokaido stations, you may have heard that. When he died, one of his pupils, who had married his Ando Hiroshige's daughter, took over the business and called himself Hiroshige II. But then divorce between Ando Hiroshige's daughter and Hiroshige II, and then another pupil of Ando Hiroshige married his daughter, and he called himself Hiroshige III. Yeah? And this print is by him very typical for Meiji prints, and collectors, some collectors actually specialize just in these depictions from the modernization of Japan. Our next print is a triptych by Yoshitoshi. Yoshitoshi Tsukioka, or also called Yoshitoshi Taiso. And by today's literature, and I think also common opinion, he's regarded as the really greatest, as the leading printmaker of the Meiji period. But he was a little bit a weird personality. He also suffered from depression and later from mental illness. And his subjects are rather unusual, but genius-like. This is a rather rare triptych, and it shows in the middle sheet a feudal lord, and he is leaning against something and apparently dreaming. And on the right sheet we see, rather enlarged, a sleeping beautiful woman, and on the left sheet quite unusual. Another woman, but she's holding a dagger in her hand. I cannot tell you more about that, only that it's rare. We've never seen this before, and it's also not quite cheap. The best prints by Yoshitoshi, they are not cheap in any way. Okay, next one. And here we have another triptych. This is by Konichika Toyohara. He's also, in the literature, is called the last master of ukiyo-e. Ukiyo-e, for those who are not familiar with Japanese prints, it's just another word for Japanese prints, so until the until roughly 1900. Konichika was a typical bohemian artist. He was a heavy drinker, a womanizer, a bragger, but he had two more passions. One was woodblock printmaking, and he was a damn good woodblock printmaker. And the last passion was kabuki, the traditional Japanese theater. And therefore, most of his prints are from the kabuki theater, show scenes from kabuki performances. And this is such a print in the form of a triptych, and it shows a scene from a famous kabuki play, Sugaroku. Okay, let's have a look at the next one. Also, this is by Konichika. We have two single prints by Konichika in this auction, and I don't show the other one. This is rather dramatic, rather nice colors, rather good condition. And that's so much about Konichika. Konichika, drunk, womanizer, bohemian, fantastic printmaker. Next one, and this is now a so-called Osaka print. Why Osaka print? Quite simple. At that period, most of the woodblock prints were produced in Tokyo. Osaka also had a printmaking school with an output of prints much lower than the printmakers from Tokyo. And the Osaka school had completely specialized also on the kabuki theater. And why? Because it was the main market. Yeah, woodblock printmaking at that time was not considered as a high art. And these printmakers, they could not just make subjects that their genius told them to do. No, they had to do what sold in the market. It's maybe comparable to today's, let's say, production of posters of popular film stars. And yeah, this is by one of these Osaka printmakers, by Sadanobu II Hasegawa, also called Kano Shugen. That's, by the way, just a comment for beginners in Japanese prints. A little bit annoying at the beginning, because these Japanese artists, they also often change their names, and these names that you can read in the catalogs, they are not their real names. They are their artist names. And it was a habit to change that every now and then. Causes a lot of confusion, of course. Okay, our last print is by Yasuji Inoue. Yasuji Inoue was a pupil of Kiyoshika Kobayashi. And, well, this was already towards the end of the 19th century. And these artists, they were both teacher and student. They were influenced by French Impressionism, which is a little bit recognizable in their prints. But this influence, Japanese prints and French Impressionism, it was vice versa. Because when the French Impressionists began, and then especially the Post-Impressionists, yeah, and they discovered Japanese prints, they were mesmerized. So the influence was in both ways. Japanese prints, Impressionists. Yeah, Yasushi Inoue, you will not see his prints too often in the market. And he died at a rather young age. I think he was at the beginning of his 30s. Well, anyway, we've come to the end of this little video. I hope you enjoyed it a little bit, and you can bid on these prints that I just presented you until January 2nd. That is a Sunday, and our auctions, they always run over 1 week, and they end on Sunday, 8 p.m. our local time, and our local time is Central European time, and we are usually ahead. Well, summer saving time sometimes makes a little bit of confusion, but usually we are ahead 6 hours of you guys at the US East Coast. Enough for today. Well, I wish you a happy new year, and I would be pleased to see you for our next auction. Goodbye, and thanks for watching.